We good? Hello, everyone. Thank you all for coming. My name is Ashish Jain. I'm the product manager for PayPal Identity Services. And with me, I have today is Vidya Shivkumar. She's the director of product management at Genrain. And I have Dave Giovanno and Brian. And Dave is the CEO of Gigya. The agenda today is that we're going to start with going over some of the challenges that we believe are facing the space of consumer identity and how some of the efforts that the industry is putting together to address those. We are going to give you an overview of a PayPal OpenID service that is available today and how you can integrate with that. Given the fact that it's based on an open protocol, you should be able to use any of the open source toolkits or integrate with them using the products from Genrain and Gigya, and you will get to see a demo of how those products work, and as a developer, how you can integrate with PayPal OpenID service. And at the end, we're going to give you a preview of some of the features that we have planned in the next coming months. So this picture should look fairly familiar to you. As an internet user, when you go online and you want to access any of the service, the first thing that you have to do is to make a new account. That means entering your name, your email address, where you live, your date of birth, your gender, and so forth. And on top of that, you have to make a username and a password. So whether you're trying to buy something, you are trying to make any travel reservations, you're trying to pay your bills, doing your banking, your 401k, and so forth, that's the first thing that you have to do every time. So what's wrong with that? Well, the first thing is, this data is slightly old, but it still conveys the main message. As an average user today has about 25 online accounts. An average user uses 6.5 passwords across all of these online accounts, which means that he shares about 4 to 5 passwords across all these sites. Even more concerning is the fact that 66% of US consumers shares the same 1 to 2 password across all of these sites. What that means is that if you happen to make a new account with any of those Web 2.0 online sites, and you happen to use the same password that you have been using at PayPal, PayPal suddenly has an incremental risk for account takeover, even though PayPal has nothing to do with this new site. And even as a website owner or as an application developer, the user registration and onboarding continues to be the single most barrier of adoption for new users. The data that we see is that 30 to 40% of the users drop out at the registration page. And on top of that, you have the stale user data. An example of that would be, I recently moved from Colorado to the Bay Area, and I'm keeping a track of all the places I'm changing my address. The list is about 30, and I know I'm only halfway there. So if you have a site that the people do not access on a regular basis, the chances are you have the stale data on the user to begin with. Password reset. So for any online customer service, password reset continues to be the single biggest factor for support cost. So what's the solution? There is this concept called as third-party login, which has beginning to appear in the industry in a far more common ways in the past few years. And the concept is fairly simple. If you are a user, you go to a site that you do not have an account with, and you would like to access the service. Instead of making an account with them, you log in using an account that you already have. So if you go to Sears.com today, instead of making an account with them, you are able to log in them using your Google or a Yahoo ID. Behind the scene, in order to make this happen, the industry has converged into 3 or 4 major protocols. They're OpenID, SAML, information card, and OAuth. I'm not going to go into details of these protocols in this session, but if you have any questions, we are happy to talk to you after it. So before I go any further, let me ask you a quick question. How many of you have heard of OpenID? Wow. Okay. How many of you have heard of OAuth? Or the same. How many of you have heard of SAML? How many of you have heard of information card? Okay, excellent. So let me ask you slightly different. How many of you plan to implement any one of them in the next 6 months? Okay. So half of those, you raise hands, we are in a one team. The one who did not raise hands, we're going to work on you. So this is a slight simplification of all of these protocols, but behind the scene, the flow remains more or less similar. You have an IDP or a provider. In this case, for instance, it could be PayPal, somebody who's asserting the identity of the user. On the other side, you have a relying party who's accepting the assertion from the provider. The example would be Sears.com, NPR, and so forth. And then, of course, you have the user. The flow normally works like this. The user goes to a relying party in the number one step. Instead of entering the credentials on the relying party, the user gives the intent that he would rather log in using an account that he already has. In this case, he would say, I'm going to log in with PayPal. When you click on that, you get redirected back to the paypal.com or your IDP. You're going to enter your credentials at paypal.com, and you're going to get redirected back to the website. And in number 5, you're going to share the data that the website needs to allow you to have access to their service. So from a website perspective, whatever they needed in terms of account registration and creation, they're able to get the same data from the provider, at the same time reduce the friction significantly. As it stands today, this is a list of some of the providers today which are implementing the 4 protocols I mentioned. The benefit of this, of integrating those 4 protocols is this. As an application provider, as a website owner, or as a merchant, if you implement those 1 or 2 protocols, you're able to accept the users from all of these websites, and you're not locking into any one provider or any one proprietary protocol. So we, of course, have the likes of Google, Yahoo, Facebook. At the same time, you see a lot of telcos like Verizon, AT&T, and Orange who are also entering the same space by allowing their existing users to access third-party services. I'm going to skip this slide given the time frame that we have and the demos that we want to show you, and I'll come back to it if we have some time. So the question I get asked every time I talk about PayPal becoming an IDP is that how is PayPal identity different? If I already have Google, I already have Facebook, I already have Yahoo, why should I actually use PayPal identity as a consumer? There are a couple of points, and I'll address them in the next slide. I was looking to highlight the key point that I think is how PayPal is different. And I saw this outside yesterday, the conference center. So how many of you actually saw this outside yesterday? Okay, so for those of you who did not see, there was a bunch of people who actually had a 600-pound of ice outside the conference center, and within that they had a couple of dollar bills, and they had in text that PayPal freezes your accounts. So I don't exactly get the point that they were trying to prove, but the reality is, if PayPal detects any suspicious activity or any fraudulent activity on any of the internet user that is accessing a transaction, PayPal will freeze the account. What that means is that if you are a relying party and you are accepting an assertion from PayPal about the user, you have a high degree of confidence that this user is a user that you would want to do a business with. So it's, keep this in mind that $25 billion flows through the PayPal systems per quarter. So PayPal has spent the past 10 years in trying to build the most comprehensive fraud detection system. Anytime you log into paypal.com, we go through about 200 checks to make sure this is the right user, this is the right machine, this is the right merchant, this is the right credit card that you're using. And as a website owner or an application developer, if you outsource your authentication and user management to PayPal, you get all of that 10 years of fraud detection built in as part of the protocol. The second data that we have is a qualified scenario. Given the fact that we do payments and transactions, the data that we have on behalf of the user, your shipping address, your billing address, and your name, your email address, is a lot more qualified as compared to what you will find with the other providers. The third scenario is the integration with payment APIs, and I'm hoping some of you got to see the in-context and the embedded payment flows that you saw yesterday in the keynote. From an identity perspective, if you are a consumer and if you are an application provider who is accepting PayPal identity and who is accepting PayPal for payment, We would like to make sure that the user experience is a lot more streamlined so that the friction to come to your site and the friction to make a payment is as low as possible without sacrificing the security benefits that PayPal brings to the table. From our PayPal identity ecosystem, the way we look at it is that on one side we have the average user, and we would like to address the issues of security, convenience, and password fatigue. The other side, we see one of the masters of PayPal is the application developers, the innovators, and we would like to make sure that when you are developing an application, the focus of your application is the business that you are trying to provide, and the authentication, registration, fraud management is handled by PayPal. And the same token, when we talk to the merchants, the fact that we are able to bring all that data to a merchant to be able to offer a better service to your users. And on the fourth side, we have some of the claims providers. So PayPal, we differentiate between an IDP who's providing the identity and a claims provider who's providing the claims. An example of that would be, for instance, Equifax, who knows that you are over 18. However, it's extremely hard today online to prove that you are over 18. From a PayPal perspective, we would like to build that infrastructure where other claims providers are able to piggyback on PayPal infrastructure and PayPal relationships to be able to make the claims that they have a lot more portable. Today, we have an OpenID service. The URL is mentioned over here. PayPal is one of the 3 providers that is certified to be accepted by the government agencies. Given it's an open protocol, these are the open source libraries that we have tested it against, so PHP, Python, Java, and .NET. At the same time, we have worked with 2 providers, Janrain and Gigia, in order to even get the developers a better experience so that if you come through these products, as and when we add more data, the chances for you to come along with PayPal is even less. On that note, I'm going to hand off the mic to Vidya, who's going to walk you through the Janrain Engage demo and how do you get to integrate with PayPal. Thank you. You can use that one.
Thank you, Ashish. So what does Janrain do? Janrain is the user management platform for the social web. And how do we fit in here? We have been solving online identity and user management issues since about 2005. And we have been pioneers in the space, being one of the co-founders of the OpenID Foundation, having written the original libraries for OpenID, and one of the first to introduce a SaaS-based user management platform for the social web. And one of the very first to also introduce social login for the mobile space, a multi-provider social login in the mobile environment. So our flagship product, Janrain Engage, has been integrated into leading platforms and onto leading websites in the retail space, such as Sears, Kmart, Kodak, and in the media and entertainment space, such as NPR, platform providers like Viewpoints, MTV and City Search, and so on and so forth. So Janrain Engage provides social logins for over 16 providers and social networks. We also enable sharing to multiple social networks, so you can share content and activity on your site. We enable sites and developers to collect rich user profile data on their users, as well as have the ability to invite their friends to your site. A SaaS solution that is very turnkey can be deployed within the hour. And we are on 270,000 websites worldwide today. So why are we here? Janrain is happy to add support for PayPal as one of the login providers on Janrain Engage. And how do you, as a developer or a website operator, go about doing this? It's a very simple process. You visit janrain.com. Sign up for one of our plan types, which could be Basic, Plus, or Pro. So you can get started almost immediately, or you can do it right as I'm speaking. Configure your widget. It's very simple. You drag and drop the UI widget. PayPal's one of the providers. You implement Janrain Engage for your site. So we give you very step-by-step instructions to implement it both for the web as well as for mobile platforms. And our API is very straightforward and simple to integrate. launch it on your website and mobile applications, and let your users sign in. It's just that simple. The screenshots show you the website user experience and the mobile app user sign-in experience using Generate Engage and PayPal. And this is what a return experience looks like for your users. So when they come back, we recognize them and log them in. So it's a single-click, seamless experience backed by PayPal's trust and identity and risk management. And so that's what you get. And before I jump in, so a couple of Janrain customers have already implemented PayPal logins on their website, and I wanted to show a quick demo of that. So this is nellyfurtado.com, one of the 400 websites that Universal Music Group operates. And Janrain Engage is on a lot of artist sites powered by UMG. They were up and running. They have been accepting Janrain Engage logins, social logins through Janrain Engage for a while now. So adding PayPal was very simple. All they had to do was spend 5 minutes to just drag and drop PayPal, configure it, and off they are. So I will just show you the sign-in experience. Here I am, PayPal user, logging in. PayPal's doing the usual checks on me to make sure that they can actually let me through. They're asking me as an end user if I want to share my profile and information with Universal Music Group. And this is the pre-populated registration form. PayPal passes back a verified email address, which is my Gmail address, and my username in the payload, which UMG has populated on the website. And I just need to fill out a few pieces of additional information, and I'm done. And what Universal Music Group gets here is a fully qualified, fully verified, non-fraudulent user to sign in to their site, and the user gets simple, straightforward user experience, and the website, it's very simple and easy to integrate. A couple of our other customers, Mahalo and Talkie, is an embedded forums company. They've both implemented it as well. I welcome you to go out and check these websites out to see their implementation. And last but not the least, I'd like to show you how easy it is to set up an application and add PayPal via Janrain Engage. So most of you should be able to go set up a basic application right off our website. So I'll just type in an app name. That's it. And you just need to follow a few basic instructions on PayPal's side to get your application whitelisted, and you'll be on your way accepting PayPal logins. You need to implement some backend stuff, of course, to be able to authenticate the user to your site. So if there are any further questions, or I can hand over to the next speaker. And right. Okay.
Great. Thanks for having us, Ashish. My name is Dave Ivano. I'm the CEO of Gigia. Quick background on Gigya. It was founded in 2006 by 3 co-founders from Tel Aviv, Israel. So today I'm representing our R&D center in Tel Aviv of about 35 people. I'm also joined by Brian Schmidt, who is a developer. He's been a close partner of Gigya for the past year, utilizing the Gigya services on his stealth startup, and he'll be the one giving you a quick demo of our services. The company was started to simplify how third-party websites were trying to connect to the social platforms, the primary social providers at the time, mostly around how people were distributing content to their social network pages and to blogs. But very early on, we saw the trends around OpenID and, more interestingly, OAuth amongst the big providers. And so we laid the groundwork very early on to roll out our authentication-based second generation of our platform in March of 2008. It's actually the same month that Facebook Connect launched. So since then, we've gotten great traction with the big news, sports, entertainment sites, more recently retail, and our technology is touching 280 million unique people per month. So that you can see graphically what we're doing as a service, what we've done here is we've created an abstract layer on top of over 20 providers, PayPal now being one of them. And so what you're doing as a developer is you're writing to the Gigya API. Okay, and this API is based on the new OAuth 2.0 standard, and then Gigya will make the appropriate call to the appropriate provider. And so obviously this sort of architecture comes with a lot of benefits. Depending on how many IDPs you're planning to integrate into your service, it's one implementation, not several. We take care of the ongoing updates, which happen as new providers come online, such as PayPal. It's very easy to add those to your web application or to your website. We also have multiple development options, including both REST and secure client-side development options. We have a set of libraries for .NET, Java, et cetera. We're probably the only option, if you're working native to the Adobe authoring tools like Flash, Flex, Remove, or Air. They're a strategic investor in our company. One of our co-founders is actually down at the Max conference right now talking to developers about how to do that within their environments. So that's a little bit on our architecture. But beyond this core unified API that we offer, we have a set of applications that sit on top of that speed your implementation even further. So we've got plugins essentially for signing in, which you see here in the top right. For sharing, what you see here is our Share UI here, supporting distribution to multiple networks. We've got a set of community applications, such as our activity feed here that you see behind the Share UI to the right, showing what people are doing who have signed in using a provider, what they're doing real time on the site. We also support things like chat and comments now. We have a pretty robust roadmap for just more and more functionality. We have support for not just the iPhone, iPad SDKs, but also for Android. A lot of this stuff is documented. If you go to wiki.gigya.com, you'll see basically all the options that we provide there. It's very easy to get started with Gigya. Basically, you go to gigya.com, you create an account. Anyone can do that for free. If you think you're above the minimums that we put in the terms, just write to us. We're a very early stage company and nonprofit focused type of company, and so just write to us and we'll grant you a license. But I wanted to introduce Brian, who will get up here and show how to add the PayPal identity services to your site or application very quickly and easily with Gigya.
Okay, can everyone hear me? Good. Okay, what I wanted to do is, by the way, I do have a stealth, so I'm not actually here, so just keep that in mind here. First, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you from a developer's perspective just a quick login, and then we'll go through and show you how to actually implement it. Okay, so the first thing is you can see over there where it says PayPal, that's the login plugin. And so you'll just, with a couple lines of JavaScript, that'll actually just be plopped right onto your site. And so let me go ahead and log in here with my PayPal credentials. Okay, let me just put in my password. And of course, it's doing all the necessary handshaking and making sure I am who I say I am. Okay, so when I hit yes here, you'll notice that actually can say instead of gigya.com, you can use your CNAME, and it'll actually say whatever your domain is, whatever your website is. Okay, so you can see that I just logged in there. It says, hi there, Heido, right here. And just for this demo, we actually have a developers tab that we put up here. So you can see, when I click on this, you can actually see the user object that gets passed back. And so as a developer, of course, you're going to want to have access to all the user information. And so right now there's name, email, et cetera. You'll get a full user object back, which will have all the data. And with both the client-side API and the REST API, you'll be able to access that in whatever call you want. So the basic, as you can see, the basic sign-in is fairly straightforward. What I wanted to do was just to show you actually how to add that to your site. But most importantly, I wanted to show you how to do it securely. Because it's obviously, especially with e-commerce, you want to make sure that everything is secure enough that you can sleep at night knowing that everything is working the way it's supposed to. As Dave said, when you actually log in with an account, you'll actually be brought to this plugins page, which allows you to configure the plugin, the login plugin, any way you want. Let me see if you have enough. Yeah, you have enough room there. In this page, you can do things like, as you'll notice, you can do things like whether or not you want to use icons, whether or not you want to use full logos. You can use a pop-up. You can make the widget a pop-up if you want. You can change the size of the buttons if you want. For example, you do this. Basically, you get the idea is that you can configure this login any which way you want. There's both a Flash component if you prefer Flash. For our site, we use HTML. But both of those, they basically generate the code for you. And that code, as a matter of fact, is right underneath here. See where it says grab the code? So that's the JavaScript code that you embed in the header. And that's the code that you're going to present in the body. And I actually have a sample code here. You can see how easy it is to actually get this working. So this right here, this line right here is the actual JavaScript library that you would actually install. And see this right here, PayPal? That's how easy it is to create a new provider. You have PayPal, Facebook, Twitter. All we're doing now is we're just adding PayPal as a provider, and PayPal then is presented as a button right in front of you. Down below, you can see the other script properties that you'll add. And like I said, you can add those properties and customize it whichever way you want to. But you can see it's pretty standard, but it's very simple to integrate, which we did, and we played around with those fields quite a bit. The other thing, it's important to note that this script here, the source, you can actually do this with HTTPS if you want to make sure that everything is secure from between PayPal and Gigya. And to do that, actually, you would just have to do something as easy as this. By typing in S and typing in S here. By doing that, your JavaScript library is now totally secure, and all the communications that you do with PayPal are totally secure. That's an important, very important point, because someone asked me about that when we were implementing ours. The other thing that I actually liked about Gigya when we were first starting is once that information comes back to the server, and they mention authentication, it's really important to make sure that the oh, you have a question? Look, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Is that better? Okay. The other thing that was important is while the communication between PayPal and the client is taken care of, especially if you use the the secure communication, Gigya actually passes back a digitally signed signature that actually encrypts or that actually signs the user ID information back to make sure. And the reason why they do it is you want on the server to make sure that the user who is authenticating is who they say they are from the browser back to your site. And that's obviously important because, we all know Firefox, you can get in there and play around with, God knows what. We've seen it. And so you need to have something on the server that validates that there's been nothing that's gotten in the way. And so another reason why that we liked Gigya so much is as Dave mentioned, they have the, can you see that? Is that okay to see there? Good. They actually have the SDKs, PHP, Java, and .NET SDKs. And what we do on the server then is what we get once we get the information, we'll actually verify that the signature is exactly the same. And for us, it was actually a piece of cake because if you use the SDK, which Gigya has freely available on the site, which is this include here on PHP, then it's a single line of code right there to validate that signature. And so for us, that was huge, because that meant that, in effect, we not only used PayPal to actually come out and bring back and make sure that they are who they say they are from PayPal's perspective, we can also verify that they have not messed around with the information when it got to your server. So between the two of those, you pretty much should be able to sleep at night knowing that you've covered everything and that you're secure. And for our site, it was sort of funny that when we implemented this, we almost thought we weren't quite sure if we were doing it right, because it was pretty straightforward to implement, and we were sort of thinking, is that it? And actually, that is it. If you just use the SDK and validate the signature, then you pretty much have everything covered. And that was huge for us. I mean, that really is important for us in making sure the identity. Okay. The last thing I just wanted to show was the documentation. If you go to wiki.gigya.com, they'll actually have a full API here reference. So if you want to explore the PayPal objects, we have a REST and JavaScript API. So if you want to see the information you're getting around with, both of those are fully implemented, and you can play around with it. So anyway, I guess we'll get the questions afterwards at the QA session. Thank you. Oh, you got that? Okay.
Thanks, Brian. So I was testing it last night, and I saw that you can now log in at Lady Gaga using PayPal.com. So I know that our risk and InfoSec team would be very happy that now PayPal is accepted at Lady Gaga. So I wanted to give you a quick overview of where we are going in future. Before I do that, let me give you a quick overview about an OpenID Retail Advisory Committee that the OpenID Foundation is putting together. There are links here to talk about what the charter for the committee is, the wiki to get more information, and a Yahoo group where you can come and join. So if you are a merchant application developer or a website owner, and you would like to discuss with all the providers, Google, Yahoo, Facebook, PayPal, in terms of the use cases that you would like to address, we would welcome your feedback. PayPal and the OpenID Foundation will be hosting a meeting at PayPal offices in Q1 to bring everybody together and go over those use cases. So if you have any questions in terms of contact, you can have the email addresses right here for more details. If you have any feedback that you would like to give, this is the email address. This is also the Twitter handle for all the people who have been involved, both from PayPal side and the partner side, to make this one happen. So feel free to follow any one of them or ask your questions. From a future perspective of where we are going next, the current service today supports name and email address, but we continually get asked the additional data that PayPal can share. Where we are today is we are putting together the infrastructure in place so that we are able to share more data and get some early feedback. So this is still a pilot type of initiative. And once we have more feedback, we would like to release more data, including the shipping address, billing address, and a few other items. Integration with payment and other PayPal APIs. The one you saw yesterday, the PayPal apps, the embedded payment experience, we would like to make sure, like I mentioned earlier, the integration between identity and those applications, so your users have a seamless experience. Offline access to user data, which we often get asked is, if I'm a website and I have access to users' data when the user is present, what happens if I want the same data when the user is not present, so that I don't have to store any information for this user except a unique identifier. So PayPal will be supporting an endpoint where, as an application developer, all you have to do is have access to that identifier, and with user consent, you can ask for that data on behalf of your users. And all the protocols that I mentioned before, even though OpenID is the first protocol that we are supporting, there are other protocols that are currently under works. We have an information card endpoint today, and we are adding the one for SAML and OAuth. I think this is the time all I have before I get Hera. So any questions? And I'd like to welcome Jan Rain and Gigya to come on the stage so that we can answer questions. Thank you. Go ahead, sir. Do you want to have a mic?
It's here.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, Ashish, yeah, thank you. You said everything right. And in the context of what was discussed today, I think I have missed a page. in the sense that you said there was stale data. And to give an example, I have probably, I've signed up for more than 100, service providers. If I just Google my name, it comes up like 500 hits. So, and I'm pretty sure that all the stale data, all my credit card, free credit card applications are going to my previous, rental house or something. So, it's opening up a huge black hole for my security and all that stuff. So that's aside the data. So you mentioned that PayPal has developed this secure concept, the ID concept over so many years, has spent so much resources on it. But what I missed out was when the demos came on, and when the customers signed on to the PayPal page, there was a yes or no button. The yes said, share my data with the service provider, which included, date of birth and things like that. One of the things personally I'm upset is I don't want to give my date of birth to everyone. Nobody sends me a birthday card. So why do they want the date and the month and the year? If they want to verify my age, let them have an API into PayPal saying, is he more than 24? End of story. Right? So why does the service provider need all my personal information when, on the other hand, you're trying to hide it? But then you're trying to hide it in one step and releasing it in the next step. That was my question.
Okay, so let me answer that in a couple of ways. The first thing I want to do is that there is the authentication part where when you come to PayPal, enter your credentials, and PayPal knows who you are. Right. Then there is the federation part where PayPal asserts your identity back to the relying party. So when we talk about the protocol that we are supporting here is the federation protocol, which piggybacks on the authentication that PayPal has done for the past 10 years. Right. Now, from a federation perspective, when the request comes from a relying party back to the IDP, the relying party gets to request that this is the 4 pieces of information that I need in order for this user to do my business with me, right? And within the protocol, there are ways that the relying party can say this is the absolute required information because I'm in the business of sending a birthday card, so I absolutely need to have his birth rate. The other part is there's an optional part which is it will be great to have his birthday. When PayPal shares the data, there are 2 things that we do. We only share the information that is required, A. B, we whitelist the relying party so that if before a relying party is allowed to accept any attributes on PayPal behalf, we need to make sure that they actually do have a reason to ask for data. So compared to all the other providers, Google, Facebook, and Yahoo, if you want to be a relying party to PayPal, you have to submit a form and then tell us, yes, you are really who you say are as a relying party. So we have a vetting process. And the third thing is before we share any data on behalf of the user, we are going to show you the name, the type of the data, and the value of the data. So as a user, you're always in control of what data about you is being shared. In the examples that you've seen today, we do not share birth date. We only share name and email address. But in future, if the relying party asks for shipping address because they are in the shipping business, and if we share that data, we will come back to the user, ask for a consent again to make sure that you are okay with that.
I have a somewhat related question. Is there going to be some kind of merchant underwriting process or something for folks that are joining Gigya and JanRain? Because I can see that these become trust marks. So if somebody sees PayPal on somebody's website, they're like, okay, these are good guys. And I can see that there could be some bad actors that could very quickly take advantage of that.
Sure, go ahead.
So I can answer the question on behalf of JanRain. So as Ashish alluded to, the PayPal whitelisting process where they establish a good relationship with the merchant and make sure that they only get access to data that they need to. On the JanRain side, we run individual applications on a per site basis. So we're never mixing anything, so we don't send everybody through a single app. And we do that for all our providers, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or Google or Yahoo, everybody gets their own application, has a personal relationship with the provider side. So should there be any violation of any terms, then we're easily able to turn a customer off. And I can tell you that of all the 270,000 sites we've operated, we haven't had that issue yet. But should there be any such thing happening, it's very easy for us to switch that button off and say, off you go.
My question is about additional information provided by PayPal. Currently, we are using permission services. Are you planning to merge identity and permission services?
So the product manager for permissioning service is chuckling as we speak, Yulia. So the answer is yes. Today, when you give a consent, we ask you for a consent from a user perspective when you are sharing the data. And when you go through the permissioning service, that's the other place where the user is asked to give his preference. In future, both from a protocol and SDK perspective, as well as from a user perspective to have a single place to manage his preferences and his profile, that's the direction where we would want to merge. So when I talk about a user experience in the future steps, that's what I was alluding towards.
The user will not need to make two logins for identity and for permissions. It will be done in one.
When you say two logins, or did you say two ways to configure permissions? So there are multiple actors here.
I want to redirect user to PayPal.
Yes.
And in one step, he will confirm permission and grant, confirm identity and grant permissions.
Yes, and that's exactly where we are going. And the other item, which is when I said offline access to user data, that also includes user preferences. So the flow would be one time you go to a relying party, you get redirected to PayPal. We ask the user for consent for a variety of things, including the one that you would want for permissions. The user gets back to the relying party, and then afterwards, user has a single portal at paypal.com to revoke that permissions if he wants to.
Will I be informed if he revoked or not?
I'm sorry, say again?
For example, I have onboarding process for seller. And as you mentioned, for operate properly, I need some data, say shipping address or whatever. And he provided me it first. Everything is fine. When then he revokes permissions, will I be notified, kind of IPN?
The answer is yes. So anytime a user comes to a PayPal profile page and revokes the permission with the relying party or breaks that linkage, you will get a notification.
Thank you.
I think we have time for one more question, and then we can take the questions after the session. I'll be around.
Hi. I'd like to understand what is the integration between SAML and this open, what is that, OpenID or?
So OpenID, SAML, information card, and in many ways OAuth, they solve the same problem of allowing the user to share data in between two endpoints. Like any other protocol, they have different ways to do key management, they have different ways to do discovery, and they have different ways to represent a token which has the information about the user. OpenID has become a lot more acceptable in the consumer community because of the deployment ease which comes with OpenID. In the Fortune 100, within the enterprise use cases, when you do the same kind of scenarios, when you have a pairwise trust and a pairwise establishment of who you are, SAML is a lot more popular and a lot more in usage. But in the consumer world, when you have new websites coming along every day, PKI is not really a good scalable solution. OpenID has become more popular. From a PayPal perspective, we have partners that have explicitly asked us to use SAML, which is why we would plan to support SAML. There are partners who said because of the infrastructure that they have in place and the need that they have to accept Google and Facebook, they would like to use OpenID. So we want to be protocol agnostic and still address the use cases that the relying party has. I think this is the time we all have for now. And if you have any questions, the slide deck would be available I think the streaming is also available after on, and we will hang around the whole team if you have any questions. Thank you.